train and teach entrepreneurial spirit. The Business Model Canvas. Hi, we are T&TES from the Erasmus Plus program. We want to have a look on the Business Model Canvas with you, but first, we want to welcome our partners from Belgium, France, Germany, Norway, and Sweden. Wikipedia says, the Business Model Canvas is a strategic management and lean startup template for developing new or documenting existing business models. It is a visual chart with elements describing a firm's or product's value proposition, infrastructure, customers, and finances. What? This was not enough, you want something to read. Okay, here we go.
We're going to cover value proposition. What is it you're building and for who? What pains and gains are you creating for what customer segments? And more importantly, what's the minimum viable product that results from all this knowledge?
Hey T, what is the value proposition about?
As I said, it's not just about your idea or product. One of the things that's hard for founders to realize, there's actually a customer at the other end. And so while you're thinking this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, the whole idea about customer development is to get you out of the building and tell me whose need or problem you're solving. It's about satisfying a customer need, not just you thinking, what a great idea.
T, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about customer segments. Who are you building your value proposition for? What jobs do they want to get done? What pains do they want to solve and what gains do they want to see? And at the end of this, what you want to find is what's the archetype or persona of who you're building the product for.
We're going to focus on customer segments. One of the interesting things about customers is that customers don't exist to buy, you actually exist for them. And especially if you're a technology startup, that's really hard because you always think it's about your product. And it's hard to remember that it's actually about the people on the other side who are going to buy. And so one of the things you really need to understand is who are they and why are they going to buy from you? And one of the goals of customer segments is trying to understand the archetype or the persona or maybe just the details of who these people are in specific detail. You want to know where they live, what do they do, what's their age, are they in urban areas or are they married, etc. And why do you want to know that? Because it will help you figure out how to not try to boil the ocean by trying to get everybody in the world to buy your product, but figuring out who specifically is interested and why makes it incredibly easy to sell and have them want your product when you understand who they are and what their motivations are. So that's why we spend all this time talking about customers and customer segments. The next is channels. How does your product over here get to your customers over here? And we use distribution channels to do that.
How does the product get from the company to the customer?
Now what's really interesting is pre-1990s, the only channels to get to a customer was a physical channel. That is, you went to a store, you had salespeople, there was physical distribution. But since the mid-1990s, in the last couple of decades, we now have virtual channels, the web, mobile, cloud. And so distribution channels, the first question you want to ask is, how will I be selling and how will I be distributing my products? Are they through physical channels or are they web mobile? Or given today, almost every physical channel also has a web presence. What is the relationship of how your product gets from your company to the customers?
Tell me, T, what is the basic function of the customer relationship segment?
It basically says, how do I get customers, how do I keep them, and how do I grow them? And just like thinking about distribution channels, these are very different for web mobile than they are for physical channels. But visually, they kind of look like this double-sided funnel. So let's just take a look at quickly a web example. In getting customers, you're going to be worrying about how do I acquire them? That is, how do I get them even to my website? How do I activate them? That is, how do I make them do something? And then later on, we'll see after I got them, how do I keep them around? That is, how do I not lose them through attrition and churn? And then what can I do once I have customers to make them spend more money or use my product even more? And so one of the things we'll be thinking about is how do I get, keep, and grow customers? And just like every other step, you might have hypotheses on day one, but you're only going to figure this out when you're out of the building. The next thing is revenue streams. how do you actually make money from your product and service being sold to customer segments? Revenue streams basically ask the question, what value is the customer paying for? And it actually has you think about what's the strategy of how I'm going to capture that value. Is it I'm going to just have a direct sale and it's a transaction based on price? Is it a freemium model where I'm going to give away the product for free and hope that some portion convert later? Is it a license or subscription model? That revenue model is different than the pricing tactics. That is, what is the dollar or pound amount or euro amount that I'm going to be charging? Again, the only way to figure this out is being able to interact with tens or hundreds or thousands of customers till you finally understand what the right revenue stream and revenue model is.
What are the most important assets required to make the business model work?
Well, finance. Do you need capital? Do you need a line of credit? Some assets and resources are physical. Do you need physical plant, like a manufacturing line? Do you need specialized machines? Do you need vans and for delivery? Do you need cars? Is there something else you need? Is there intellectual property you need? Is there patents you need to acquire or protect? Do you need to acquire customer lists? Or is it just that you need to get great people, great software programmers in a specific area, or great hardware designers, or great manufacturing people? And then finally, again, the interaction between intellectual and human capital that's another key resource. What specifically do you need to do to keep these people, and who are they?
Who are the key partners and suppliers needed to make the business model work?
And partnerships are kind of interesting, is we need to ask ourselves, before what's the deal, is what exactly are we acquiring from partners? And also, what activities are they going to perform and when? And this is where startups sometimes make a mistake of thinking, well, large companies do partnerships, I guess I need those too on day one. Turns out the types of partnerships you need in year one are certainly not the ones you're going to need in year 3 or 5 or 10. And the types of partnerships could be strategic alliances, joint ventures, just regular suppliers and buyers. And so you need to be thinking through who they are and actually getting out of the building and testing them. Next are key activities. What's the most important things you need to do for the business to make the business model work? Are you in the production business? Are you making something? Or are you in the problem-solving business, like you're doing consulting or engineering? Or are you managing supply chains? What are the key activities you need to become expert at?
Finally, T, please explain the cost structure segment.
What are the costs and expenses to operate the business model? One of the interesting things about cost is it's not just the obvious ones, like people or buildings or materials. What you're really going to be asking are, what are the entire costs to operate our business model? And so you want to think about what are the most important costs you need to worry about? What are the most expensive resources you're going to need to pay for? And what key activities are the most expensive? And then you want to ask the typical accounting things. What are fixed costs? What are variable costs? Are there economies of scale? And you want to start getting a good handle on what it is that will end up costing you money to run your business.
Thank you, T, for the great explanation of the business model canvas.